Hello, good morning. Thanks for joining the JIRA Fundamentals Primer, an abbreviated version of our JIRA Fundamentals training class. Just want to let y'all know we'll be recording this. We're going to send out a link to the recording for future use. And we'll also send a link to registration for the next webinar, The Power of JIRA Query Language and Reporting, an abbreviated version of our training course, JQL. This will be on April 3rd, about the same time. Also, as a reminder as well, you can submit questions through the questions capability and feature. It's on the right side. We'll queue up the questions and cover those towards the end of the webinar. I'd like to introduce the team on our webinar today. Christopher Pepe will be providing the training, the webinar itself. Christopher's been working with the Atlassian product suite since 2004. He's an Atlassian Dragon Slayer and Greenhopper Agile Master Ninja. I'm Christian Lane. I'm one of the other partners at Praecipio Consulting. We also have Shayla Sander. She helps with business development as well as the coordination and planning of the webinars. So we're Atlassian experts. We're actually one of four enterprise experts in the US. 95% of our projects are Atlassian product suite implementations. Our clients range from 20-person companies to Fortune 20 type companies across a lot of industries, everything from technology to automotive, electric utilities, commercial arts, publishing, insurance, banking and finance, medical and pharmaceuticals, telephony, security, and gaming. We implement process-centric technology solutions across a variety of types of different processes, whether it's traditional business process management, ITSM based on ITIL, and software development lifecycle methodologies. We help a lot of customers transition from waterfall to agile as well. We support our clients in all facets of the Atlassian product suite, everything from implementing and architecting solutions to licensing and installs and upgrades, the deep level technical pieces, as well as managed services, hosting, and training. So you'll find that Atlassian's doing really great work and is really positioning themselves as a true application lifecycle management solution. They've done so because they're very innovative and they also really understand software development. They're a great organization, and we've been really excited to be a part of the Atlassian experience overall. So with that, I'm going to let Christopher take over since he's going to do the JIRA presentation. Christopher, you about ready to go?
So good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. We're going to talk about JIRA today, and this is going to be an abbreviated version of the JIRA Fundamentals training that we do for our customers. As Christian alluded to, we are a very process-centric company. We're very excited about process repeatability and the ability to figure out where we have waste in our existing processes and what we can do to become more efficient. We didn't really come at it from the agile angle as a lot of companies do, but we basically have a lot of these same methodologies and ideologies. You're always looking for waste, you're always looking for what you could do better, and you're always looking for traceability and auditability. So that's kind of how we fell in love with JIRA. The workflow engine, the permission schemes, and the configurability of JIRA has allowed us to work in all of those different industries that Christian mentioned. So taking this software development tool a lot farther than it was originally designed. I wanted to start with just some high-level architecture of how the application is put together, and then we'll actually go over and do some functional use cases with it. So the application itself, JIRA, is the core of the Atlassian suite. It is the kind of what sits in the middle, and all the other applications integrate very tightly into JIRA. At the very top level, you have project categories, and you can break your projects into different categories. So if you have a service desk and some other internal support projects, they can all live in their own category. Really, the top level of organization that you worry about on a day-to-day basis is a project. And a project in JIRA is just a collection of like issues. So I mentioned a service desk, and that's the example we're going to work with today. In a software development environment, your software products typically equate to projects. So it's just all of the issues that are that are within an individual project all relate to each other. They have the same issue types. The same types of issues come up. They go through the same types of workflows. The same people work on them. A kind of sub project, almost a smaller bucket that we can further refine the organization of our tickets into is called a component. So again, with our software product, that lives at the project level. The components will be the subsystems of that product. So if we have a website, we have a database and some middleware layer that does the database connection and abstraction. We have a front end, the UI. So each of those three pieces ends up being a different component. And by leveraging components in JIRA, we can do different things like automatically assign tickets to a different component lead. So whoever is the head of the UI or maybe user experience group, tickets will automatically be assigned to them if they're not explicitly assigned to somebody else. Another sub organizational unit that we have underneath the project is versions. Versions are kind of similar to components, but rather than making up different pieces of the product, they make up different milestones or snapshots in time of our product or of our issues. So any sort of iterative process, you can use versions to encapsulate that, and then you can track things like when were particular bugs introduced, when do we plan on introducing new features, things like that. So within our project containers, we create issues. So every time we create an issue, it's going to have a project and an issue type associated with it. It's also going to have a number of other metrics that are associated with it. And there, kind of the sky's the limit. We can customize that to be able to track whatever we're trying to track. So we create our issues based on a particular issue type, and that will decide which different fields will be associated with it, which workflow it's going to go through. Underneath our issues are subtasks. So we kind of have a parent-child relationship between issues. This is especially important in agile software development, but really in any kind of life cycle. A lot of times you'll have a large body of work that you want to be able to track with an issue. Then you use subtasks to break it up into smaller, more manageable pieces of work. Those subtasks can all be assigned to different people. They can have different metrics associated with them, and they can go through different workflows. So again, it gives us a lot more flexibility with what type of information we're tracking and how we're handling the lifecycle management. So understanding that general high-level architecture of JIRA, let's switch over into the application. So here I'm logged in as a demo user. Before we dive too deep into actually using the application, let's look a little bit at the anatomy of the screen and know what the different pieces are that we're looking at. This very top bar here, we have our Atlassian JIRA logo. A lot of times you'll replace that with your own company's logo. And there's some other branding things that you can do within JIRA as well, just to match the color schemes and the look and feel of your company. I'm logged in as a demo user right now, and I've got this little down arrow, which is kind of new internet logo for lingo for there's a menu under here. So when you click on that, there's a bunch of other different things that you can do. The main two things I want to call to your attention is your profile. If we have time, we'll go look at that. There's a few things in there that are worth noting, but that's where you can set your general preferences. And then this Atlassian Marketplace. This is a relatively new link that has popped up in here, and this empowers you as a user to be able to ask for different plugins to get installed. As an example, we have this Gantt chart plugin installed, and that injected this link into this menu here. The way that we got that in there was one of our users went to the Atlassian Marketplace, found this Gantt chart plugin, and then requested that we install it. So we installed it. So that's a way that you can communicate to your systems administrators. I think that this functionality would be useful for us, and that kind of gets the dialogue started. So that's a nice new feature to be aware of. Our next bar down, we have all of our different areas of interest within JIRA. So right now we're currently looking at our dashboard. And this is the system dashboard, and we'll go into dashboards as well in more detail. Again, we have a little menu here so we can switch between different dashboards that we have configured, and we can manage our existing dashboards. Our projects menu, this is going to allow us to jump into projects themselves and look at, for each individual project, look at how the issues are broken up across that project, and it has some nice built-in dashboarding features as well. Our issues menu allows us to dive down into all of our issues. It gives us a link to our issue navigator, which is how we're going to create filters and search for just very specific issues within JIRA. It also shows us what we've been recently looking at, as well as favorite filters that we've used in the past. And then depending on what plugins you have installed, you may have additional tabs across the top as well. This is probably one of the most common ones you'll see. This Agile tab is Greenhopper, which is an add-on that lives within JIRA, and in a lot of ways just gives you a different user interface, a different way of interacting with your issues. It doesn't actually modify your JIRA data in any way, it just presents it differently. This is a very useful tool for Agile software development teams, but it's also a really useful tool just as a management tool to keep track of not only what tasks you're working on, but what your team is working on. So again, it's a little out of the scope of this webinar, so we'll go back and do a Greenhopper one another time. Over on the right-hand side, we have a Create Issue button. That's always going to be there. Anytime you want to create an issue, that button is right there. You'll actually notice as I hover over everything that these little tooltips pop up. At the very end of this one, it says Type C. Just faded out on me. So it says Type C. That's a keyboard shortcut. And here's just a little aside. JIRA is loaded with keyboard shortcuts. You can do just about everything in the application with keyboard shortcuts. So if I press C, that's going to bring up our Create Issue dialog. There's a number of other ones, and we can look in Atlassian's documentation to see what all of those are. If you just look up JIRA keyboard shortcuts, it'll give you a list of all of them. You can use them to navigate around the application, and you can use them to take actions on tickets. So our Create Issue button is always going to be there and available to us to create an issue on the fly. And then we have our quick search box. This again is another one of those. There's a whole world of information that lives just inside that little box. This is the quickest and easiest way to search for issues, and if you just put in a search term and hit enter, it's going to search for that term in the summary and description of all your tickets. But there's actually a whole secret little language. So if I want all the tickets where I'm the reporter, this query will bring that back to me. And again, that's another one of those. Maybe we'll cover that in the JQL webinar. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But the quick search is an easy way to jump, either to search for terms or to jump to a specific ticket. If you happen to know the ticket key, you can type that in, and it'll jump to that ticket as well. All right, and then finally we have kind of the action space. So right now we're in our dashboard, so we're looking at a dashboard. This is a dashboard that I created, so I have the ability to add additional gadgets to it to modify the layout, and there's some other tools that are associated with it. We'll come back to gadgets, or we'll come back to dashboards after we look at issues and searching for issues, just so there's a little bit more context wrapped around what's going on here. So first, let's take a look at projects. I just clicked on the project heading itself, and JIRA remembers what the last project that I was looking at is, so it automatically loads that. If I want to load a different project, I can do that from my recent projects menu, or I can view all the projects that I have access to. You'll notice I just have 2 projects that I have access to here. We actually have quite a few more projects than this in our JIRA instance, but this demo user doesn't have permission to see them. That's something we'll see all throughout this webinar, is that there will be a lot more information in JIRA than what this user is allowed to see. And JIRA does a really good job of hiding the things that you're not allowed to see because of your permissions. That's useful from a security standpoint. It's also useful from a clutter standpoint. If, as demo user, I only need access to those 2 projects, I don't need to know about the dozen other projects or the other 100,000 issues that may be in JIRA. Having to wade through all of that stuff just complicates my life. So the fact that all of that is hidden from me is not only a security win, but it's also just a usability win. So here on the projects page, we're looking at our demo service desk project, and it has a key of SRV. That means every ticket that I create in this project is going to start off with SRV, and then it's going to have some number. So SRV 20, 21, 53. These are all tickets within our demo service desk project. Across the side here, we have all of our different tabs. Each of these little dashboards is showing me a different view into this project, some different way of presenting the information. And one of the other nice things that JIRA does is all of this stuff is automatically generated based on the content of my issues. We do some initial configuration with workflows and projects and stuff like that, but as a user, you just create tickets, you move them through their life cycle. All of the reports and everything else get generated based off of that information, as opposed to your kind of MS Project way of doing things where you would decide kind of all of your milestones and all of your tasks, and eventually somewhere down the road after you've planned the whole project, build everything out. In JIRA, you create all of your tickets, you set due dates, you set goals, and that describes what your Gantt chart's going to look like, what your project roadmap is going to look like. So here on our summary page, we have some basic information about the project itself. If there's versions associated, it's some version information. Our activity stream is showing us who is doing what. So you can see that Joseph, myself, and Christian, we're all doing things in this project. We're doing these from our actual accounts. Again, I'm logged in as demo user, so anything we do as demo user will show up as that user. But here you can see what's going on. People are completing test sessions, adding attachments to tickets, commenting on tickets, creating them, moving them through their workflow. We have some unresolved issues that these are actually overdue now, but these would be following our next due issues, so the things that are due most recently. Our 30-day summary is showing us created versus resolved. So here you can see one ticket was resolved, and we keep creating tickets but not resolving them. If we look at a chart from an actual production project, you would see, ideally what you would see is that the created versus resolved were following each other pretty closely, and that the distance between the two would basically always stay the same. So you always have about the same amount of information that's in WIP, the same amount of work that's currently in progress. Finally, we have our recently updated. These are tickets that have been touched recently. So we know that they have been modified, and that's actually one of the things that we look for a lot when we're filtering for issues. Is we look for tickets that either have been updated recently or have not been updated for a long time. Because we have open tickets, especially in a service desk, we don't want open customer tickets that have not been updated in a long time but are still not resolved. That's a bad state to be in. That means something fell off somebody's plate, and we want to make sure we get to those quickly and get them resolved. Looking at our issues report, this is another very nice, useful one that's automatically generated for you. It takes all of the different issues that are in the project and it breaks them up by different statistics or metrics. So here we have priority, assignee, version, component, summary, status. So this is where we are in our workflow. So this is taking information that's associated to these tickets and breaking them up so we can see what is the distribution across our whole project. This one is seemingly very telling. The majority of our issues have the priority of major associated with them. We have kind of a bell curve a little bit here, although the vast majority of them are major, but we have some that are minor and even fewer that are trivial. We have some that are blocker. We have a couple that don't have any priority at all, and there's actually a critical one that's above that, and we don't have any of those, so that's good. So by looking at this distribution, we can see, where are the majority of our problems, or how severe are the majority of our problems. And that's, again, one of those incident management things. We want to get less severe issues happening less frequently, and that's our ultimate goal. If you're using versions, again, this is a service desk, so these versions aren't necessarily laid out in the most optimal way that they would be in a real software development project. But when you create your different versions, they get listed out in a particular order. And as you associate tickets to those versions, JIRA will automatically build out a roadmap for you. If you're using Greenhopper, there's some additional tools that help you do this kind of planning as well. And that'd be this Agile tab. And there's some other things that are in here, but they're not as relevant to a demo service desk. We will try to take a look at a development issue so that we can see the source code integration and build and review integration with some of the other tools. So next we're going to go search for issues. Or actually, no, before we do that, let's create an issue. And then we'll go through the whole searching. So when I go to create an issue, I just typed the letter C. I could have just as easily clicked this create issue button, and there's actually another create issue button in a couple of other places as well. But any one of those will pop up this dialog. And now it's asking me which project do I want to create a ticket in, so I can choose from any of the different projects that I have. Because we've been working with Demo Service Desk, JIRA remembers that, and that's what it offers to me. For my different issue types, we've configured this to have service desk type issues. Every different project can have any number of different issue types. They're entirely customizable. But for the demo service desk, we have incidents and password resets, general problems, tickets that need to be triaged. So we have an email integration into this project. So if you send an email to help@praecipio.com, for instance, it will create a triage ticket, and that's something that pops up in one of our service desk guys' queues as something that needs to be triaged. We need to figure out what kind of problem is this, how important is it, when does it need to be addressed. So that's just a generic ticket type for if you don't know what your problem is. For each of these different ones, we could have different sets of fields that are associated with them. In this particular case, all of these issues have all the same fields associated with them. But if we had a password reset, we may only need to know your workstation name and your username or something like that. So we could have a dramatically reduced set of fields that we were looking to collect information on. The summary is going to be a required field. We've got our little red star right there. That's internet lingo for a required field. Our description doesn't need to be. So a word on the summary. It is a short descriptive string that tells us what this ticket is all about. The description can be as verbose as it needs to be. We can put as much information in there as we want. But a good issue will have a very short but very descriptive summary. So someone glancing at just the summary will know what this ticket pertains to. Here we have a lot of other fields that are in here. We can change our priorities. We can set due dates. We have components and versions associated with this project, so we can set those as well. Here we have our assignee set to automatic. I could look for suggestions by dropping this down. I could start typing, and it's going to suggest to me valid users with that particular username. But if I leave it as automatic, JIRA will automatically decide who to assign this to. And in this case, it's going to be the project lead. If we were to add components, it may end up being one of those component leads. We have time estimation built in as well. So we put in an original estimate, how long. I can preload this by saying I've already done 20 minutes of work on this before I went and created the ticket. So I go and create that ticket. Now we have a new ticket created. Again, the issue type is an incident. We have our priority as a trivial. We've got some versioning information. Here is our status. This is showing us where are we in our workflow. So here we just created a new ticket, so we start off in the new state. And what we're looking at right now is the ticket itself. You'll notice that as I hover over things, I have the option to edit them. A nice new feature that Atlassian has added is everything on an issue is now inline editable. This little blue box is telling me I can use wiki markup as well. So this will put in a bulleted list. There's a number of other things that we can do to add rich text into our descriptions, our comments, and some other fields like that. The little yellow help button right here will take you to the Atlassian documentation on wiki markup and tell you all the markup that is valid for JIRA fields. So I can modify individual fields that way. I can click on the edit button, and that will pop up a screen that allows me to modify all the different fields. there may be a different set of fields on the edit screen than there are on the create screen, and there are a couple of use cases for why that is. One of those use cases is as you move through your workflow, JIRA will prompt you for more information. Perhaps it needs to know if you did a development task that you ran your unit tests, and you can upload your test scripts, attach those to the ticket. You may need to know who is the product manager, who approved this. So as you pick up information as you move through the workflow, the edit screen may include those additional fields so that we can modify them if they're incorrect. Pausing to take a look at the rest of the anatomy of the issue before we go through workflows. Here we have our project name itself and our project key. So we're in the SRV project, the 119th ticket that was created in this project. This is our summary. So again, we want it to be as descriptive as possible so someone just looking at that will know what this ticket pertains to, because this gets sprinkled everywhere around in JIRA. We looked at editing already. We have a couple of very common actions here, and then we have our whole actions menu. So this stuff relates to Greenhopper. Logging work, we put an original estimate on this ticket, so I can log work and say I spent another 20 minutes on it, and I can allow it to adjust automatically, or I can change how much time is left to work on this particular ticket. That changes our time tracking stuff over here. I can attach files. Should have something we can attach. So we'll attach the workflow diagram. That's this project's workflow. And we'll actually take a look at that before we go through and move the ticket actually through its workflow. So we can attach files, and you'll notice that this is an image. So JIRA knows how to create a thumbnail for an image, so it does. It also provides a link to download it. So you can attach any arbitrary file, and you can set the attachment size limit for what makes sense for your organization. Watching we'll look at in just a second when we talk about people. We talked about the ability to create subtasks. So from this action menu, I can create a subtask and break this down into different components or into different tasks. Perhaps we could create a task telling Christian to do the introduction and create me a task saying to actually do the JIRA training itself. And then we have linking issues. There's a couple of other things in here, but linking is the main one I wanted to talk about. So you can link a JIRA ticket to anything with a unique URL. So what that means from within JIRA and any of the other Atlassian applications and a few other applications that have been integrated into JIRA by third parties, we actually have very tight integrations and nice reciprocal relationships between the different linked issues. So here to link a JIRA issue together, we have all these inward and outward links, and these are all customizable, of course. But we'll go with relates to as just the most generic and kind of simplest of relationship between two tickets. But we can describe any relationship between tickets. They can duplicate each other or for whatever else. As we start typing, it will suggest to us tickets that, again, either have that particular string in their summary, or we can type in a issue key and we'll jump right to that issue as well. We can link to multiple tickets. I don't actually have access to this project. It's still going to allow me to, I think it'll still let me link. I mean, it might actually throw an error on that as well. But I won't be able to see that ticket. Yeah, so it doesn't allow me to link to Cook88 because I don't have permission to it. I know that's a ticket because in my other user account I can do it, but all it did was create the link to SRV5. So we can link JIRA tickets together, and if I go to SRV5, it'll have a backlink to this ticket as well, to 119. We can also link to Confluence pages. Actually, really any of the other Atlassian applications that we have integrated, we can link to them. If I happen to have grabbed the URL, I could just paste it in there, and it will validate that that's a valid Confluence URL that it knows about. Otherwise, I can just go and search Confluence, so all spaces or just the spaces that I have access to, and I can link to that page. Optionally, I could leave comments as to why I'm linking these things together. In this case, I'm not doing that, but here you can see in our issue link section that now we have a link to SRV5, and we have a link to this demos homepage in our Confluence instance. And then finally, we have just a generic web link. So with our link text and our URL, it's just going to create a hyperlink to whatever we want to go link to. So again, anything that's got a unique URL, you can link to a JIRA ticket. And these remote links will go to any arbitrary thing that may or may not support JIRA links. If it does support JIRA links, then you'll usually get a reciprocal relationship where going to our site will say that this particular ticket is referenced by this page. All right, and I believe those are the only actions I wanted to talk about. So next up, we have our participants, our people block over here. So every ticket will have an assignee and a reporter. So the reporter is who put this ticket in. So as the demo user, I created this ticket, so that sets me as the reporter. If you have permission to do it, you can change the reporter, but that depends on what your permissions are. The assignee, we had it set automatically, and it got set to Christopher Pepe because he is the project lead for this project. Also notice that I'm watching this ticket. As I hover over this, I get a little red X over here. That means I'm already the one guy that's watching it. If I click on this, I will stop watching it, and now my red X turns to a green plus. I click on watch again, we'll start watching it. I got added to the watch list because I created this ticket. By default, with JIRA, whenever you participate in a ticket, so if I comment on it, if I move through its workflow, if I was the one that created it or assigned it, if I any of those things, if I go in and I touch a ticket, I'm going to get added to the watch list. And the watch list is a set of participants that are related to this ticket but aren't the reporter or the assignee. And there's other cases where we can have other users that are direct participants in the ticket as well. But by being on the watch list, that means that I am now eligible to get email notifications about this ticket. That will depend on how you set up your notification scheme. So JIRA has a very granular notification scheme so that as you move things through their workflow, as you edit tickets, comment on them, all those things will potentially generate email notifications to the people that are associated with the ticket. The notification scheme is very granular, so you can make JIRA as noisy or as quiet as you need it to be so that you're getting the right level of communication to keep people engaged. Too much email is just as bad as too little email. It has the exact same effect. If you get too much, you just ignore it, and that's functionally the same as not getting it in the first place. So we typically help you tune the notification so that you're getting the right amount of communication out of JIRA. Dates that are associated with it. There was a due date. If we had set that, that would have shown up here. Any other custom date fields that we create will show up here as well. Otherwise, when the ticket was created, when it was last updated, and when it's resolved are the three built-in dates that you'll always get with every ticket. And then the time tracking stuff. We had originally estimated it was going to take 1 hour to do this particular task. We initially had logged 20 minutes of stuff we had already done on it, and we logged an additional 20 minutes. So here you can see the 1 hour that we estimated and what our remaining estimates are. If we created subtasks and we had time tracking associated with those, we could choose to aggregate that in the parent ticket and roll up all of the time, both estimated and actually worked on all of the subtasks, and look at that. And then again, in Greenhopper, there's a lot more, there are more time tracking tools to help you gauge how effective are you at estimating and how effective are you at executing. So this attachment that we put on here is actually the workflow that we configured for this particular project to use. So when a new ticket's created, it starts off as a new request. From there, we assign it to someone to actually work on it. They start progress on it. Once they're done working it, they resolve the ticket. And then if the ticket isn't modified for some amount of time, it's automatically closed. If for some reason the person who reported the ticket feels like their issue was not resolved, they have the ability to reinstate the ticket, and it goes back through the same workflow. Additionally, we can cancel a ticket at any time, and we can put it on hold. So if we're being blocked either internally or externally, we can put the ticket on hold. That way we know that that is a blocked ticket and someone is waiting on something before they can continue making any forward progress on it. So having created this workflow, that generates these buttons for us up here. We have all the transition names built into this one, just more as an example to tie it more closely into this diagram. But obviously the copy that's used in these buttons is configurable. So here, if we click on the assign button, it's going to pop up a screen and say, okay, you want to assign this ticket, who do you want to assign it to? And I'm going to assign it to Christian. Now he's been made the assignee, and we're actually in our assigned status. Something to note is that you can actually always assign a ticket to someone. It's one of the actions that we have available to us. So at any point in your ticket's lifecycle, you can assign the ticket. In this particular workflow, we have an explicit assigned step. So now we know that this ticket has been acknowledged, it's been assigned to someone, it's in their queue to work on. Now it's up to Christian to go and start progress on this ticket, which he can do. And that will happen instantly. So rather than having a screen pop up, we just told the workflow in JIRA to just automatically start progress on the ticket. Now we know that Christian is working on this ticket. Additionally, in the workflow, we can put in other conditions, like only Christian would be allowed to start progress on the ticket. I wouldn't be allowed to do it for him. There's a lot of flexibility in the workflow itself. I'm going to say he is finished working on it, he is ready to resolve the ticket. So again, a screen pops up and it asks us to asks us for more information. This is stuff that JIRA needs to know before it can resolve the ticket. Primarily, what was the resolution? So did he actually fix it? Is he not going to fix it? Maybe it's not really a problem, or it's incomplete, or he can't reproduce it. There's a number of different reasons why you would be closing a ticket, and this allows us to give a reason why. These are all configurable. And finally, he can enter in the time information, so any additional time that he logged on this. Then resolving that ticket, that's going to change us to the resolved status and set our resolution as fixed. It also sets our resolution time. Okay. Additionally, we'll see this in other places as well. I just want to bring it to your attention so you see it's here. We have this views button, so you can look at this ticket in different formats. Right now, we're looking at it in a general web UI format. We could look at it in raw XML if we were trying to integrate to a different system, or for whatever reason we wanted to look at XML. We can also export it to Word or put it into a printable format. That's a more printer-friendly format. We also have this share button. This allows us to also bring other people into the conversation. So again, I can email Christian and send him some message. Now JIRA is going to send him an email, and he's going to get a link back to this particular ticket along with my message. Say, hey, Christopher wants you to come participate in this ticket for some reason. So these views and share button, you'll see these in different places in JIRA as well. So now that we have, I'm going to reopen this real quick, and this will give us a good thing to search for. Okay. So now that we have created a ticket, we've moved it all the way through its workflow. As a general user day to day, this is how I'm actually tracking my tasks. You know, this particular ticket is a token that's tracking an incident that we're trying to fix for somebody. So now if I want to either be able to keep track of all the different things that I am working on, or as demo users manager, and I need to know what all my team has in flight right now, or for any other number of reasons, we're going to search for issues. So of the thousands or hundreds of thousands of issues we have in JIRA, I only care about a very select few right now. So let's go search for issues. The very newest version of JIRA actually has a slightly nicer, a little bit more powerful basic search tool built into it. So this one will look a little bit different than what you'll see when you install the newest version of JIRA. But the concept is the same. We have this simple form that we go to fill out. So I can enter in a query and which fields I want it to search for. When we go look at advanced searching, we can actually search across any different fields, and we have a lot more control over what we use as our search criteria. I can limit it to a specific project, and in doing so, this little box pops up, and it says that all these issue types are no longer valid. So if you click refresh here, it'll strip out the ones that are no longer valid and just give me issue types that are in the demo service desk project. We have components and versions, other issue attributes like the reporter, the assignee. We'll just look at reporter. So we can do any user, which is what we will do. We can do no reporter or no assignee in the event that you allow unassigned tickets and blank reporters. These are just configuration options in JIRA. We have some specialized roles such as current user. So if I run this as me, it's going to look for tickets that were reported by a demo user. But if I logged out and logged back in as myself, or if Christian ran it, it would return results that were relevant to Christian. Or if I logged in as my user, it would return results that are relevant to me. It's whoever's currently logged in. It's a very powerful, very useful thing when you create filters that you share with other people. We can also specify users or groups. Groups is a really powerful one as well, especially for an assignee. So I can say, I can specify a group of my service desk operators. So everyone that's in my service desk group, I want the tickets that are assigned to them. And then I'll bring back all the tickets that are assigned to everybody in my service desk organization. So that way I can keep track of what everybody's working on very easily. Statuses, resolutions, we have dates and times. So you can bind things by time. So we can look at tickets that were updated in the last week, tickets that have not been updated for more than a week, tickets that were created between 4 weeks ago and 2 weeks ago, and so on. We can also do specific dates, so you can do January 1st through January 31st if you wanted to get a report on a whole month. I'm going to skip over work ratio, but custom fields, all the different custom fields that you add into JIRA, you can set values in any of those and search on those as well. So here running our simple search, basically just for tickets that have the word demo in them in the demo service desk project. Here we get back a set of 10 different issues. If we want to be able to zero in on these a little bit more, we can continue to add additional refinements. Say we only want tickets that are open. Actually, what I'm going to do the easy way, I'm going to pick resolution is unresolved. So that's going to get rid of all these ones that have a resolution. So all these fixed, won't fixed. We should end up with 3 tickets at the end of this. I should probably run it before I say how many we're going to get. That way I look smarter if it's wrong. So here we get the 3 tickets that are unresolved, that don't have resolution set. So now let's look at the advanced mode for searching and further refine the search a little bit more. So by clicking on advanced, this is going to open up my JQL dialog. Because I had already built a filter in the simple mode and switched over to advanced, it's going to take my simple filter and convert it to JQL for me. JQL is not terribly difficult, but it looks very intimidating at first, and a lot of people are a little bit shy of it because it looks complicated. One of the best ways to start learning JQL is to build a simple filter and then switch over to the advanced mode and then just make the minor tweaks that you need to make to get what you want. So let's look at the anatomy of this. We have a number of clauses. In this case, project equals SRV is our clause. And then we have summary tilde demo. That's another clause. So all of our different clauses are anded or or'd together to build our query. In addition, this demo clause here is wrapped in parentheses, and that's to set our precedence. So we want that the summary contains, that's what the tilde means, the summary contains demo or the description contains demo, and we want all of those issues to be anded together with ones that are in the SRV project, and the resolution is unresolved. Without those parentheses, this would have an entirely different precedence, and we'd get an entirely different set of issues. So especially when you're ORing things together, you usually wrap them in parentheses. Let's say in this particular case, we don't actually care about the description, so I can just delete that. And now we're just going to look at tickets where the summary contains the word demo, and this work log example should drop out, and this one should drop out as well. So now we're down to just that one particular issue. When we did resolution equals unresolved, that brought back all the tickets that don't have a resolution set. We could also do is empty, and that would bring back, I'm actually going to pull out this summary here just so we get more results. So I can do resolution is empty. That's the same thing as resolution is equals unresolved. It means the resolution field is not set. I could also do it as status not in closed and resolved. And you'll see that as I'm typing this JQL, JIRA is automatically suggesting to me what valid operators would be because it knows after I've finished a clause, the next thing I could do is either and or set an order by to reorder my issue. So if I do and, then it knows now I need some field to act on. So that's just kind of a little nicety that the JQL query builder will help you build your queries. Looks like we have fixed as a resolution as well. So here you can see, there's a resolution, I got it. Sorry about that. So here you can see that we've been changing our query and getting different result sets and looking at all of our different data. Oh, I see canceled. There's another one I would add. So here, this is highlighting that one of the important things to know, especially when you're building out your workflow, you know, in agile software development, we always talk about the definition of done and what does done mean to you. And that's kind of what we're looking at here. Is our definition of done is a ticket that's closed, resolved, or canceled, or one that has a resolution set. By knowing what your definition of each of the statuses in your workflow are, you can build effective JQL queries. And because of that, there's a number of different ways you can build these queries to mean the same thing. For us, if you're closed, resolved, or canceled, or if you have a resolution that's set, then you're considered done. So I can build these queries any of those ways to get those results. One of the things that you want to do is build your queries in such a way that as your definitions evolve, your query will continue to work. So rather than doing status not in, I could have done status in and then listed all of our open statuses. But then if we created a new workflow that had new statuses, we would miss those tickets. Another thing here is I said project equals SRV. I referenced it by the key. If instead I were to reference it by the name of demo service desk, this demo service desk could be changed. So if we ever change the name of that project, this filter would break. But the project key is immutable. It can't be changed. So as long as I search for by SRV, then this filter won't break. Those are things to consider when you're authoring filters. So now that I've created a filter and I've got the result set that I want, I can now do something with this. This is all of my open SRV tickets. So this is the stuff that we need to work on. From here, again, I have views and share. So I can send an email to someone and say, hey, Christian, can you come look at this and update your tickets or something like that. Underneath views, again, I've got XML. I've got an RSS feed I could get. The only one I really wanted to know is Excel. So you can take this set of issues and export it to Excel. If you either need to send it to someone who doesn't have access to JIRA, or if you need to do some sort of post-processing that you can't do within JIRA, you can export it to Excel, and you can choose just the current fields, just what's shown in the issue navigator, or you can do all fields that are associated with these tickets. There are a bunch of other fields that are associated with these tickets that just aren't displayed here. We've also got this little gear that'll pop up all over the place in JIRA. This gives me access to that ticket's workflow and all the different actions that are available. So right here from the issue navigator, I can take actions on all of these tickets. And if I know, okay, this one's already done, I can go and close this ticket or move it through its workflow. Then finally, I can save this filter. And if I save it, I have a lot of other things that I can do with it. So let's go look at another filter we've already created and saved. So here's a similar one. We're looking for SRV tickets where the due date is less than now. So these are tickets that are past due. Their due date is sometime in the past. So we need to either go update our due dates or go close them out or do something else with them. So in our operations, we can either rename or share this filter. So when you save a filter, you have the option to share it with people. I can share it with everyone, with a particular group, or with just an individual project. So if I share it with everyone, now Christian can go and subscribe to this same filter once I save it. And he could use it himself, so he doesn't have to recreate it. I can also create a subscription. I can save it as a new filter if I want to use it as a base to create a new filter. And that's another way when you're first learning JQL, is if you take other people's filters and just copy them and then modify them the way that you want. That's another good way to not have to start from scratch. But by adding a subscription to this, I can have JIRA send me emails on a regular basis. So daily, days per week, or on whatever occurrence. So even every 15 minutes if we wanted to. And there's an advanced way you can do really absolutely anything. But say 8 a.m. every morning, I want the result set of these past due filters emailed to me. I will get an email in my inbox showing me all the tickets that are past due for that day, and that's stuff that we really, really need to get on and need to figure out why it went past due. Similarly, we can make filters that look for things that are due in 3 days from now, and that way we can make sure we finish them before they're late. And then finally, the last thing that we can, well, we can do more things with them, but finally, the last thing we're going to look at doing with them is embedding filters into our dashboards. So we started off on dashboards. We've now come back to it. We have a lot more context around what an issue is, how it moves through its life cycle, kind of what some of these things are that we're looking at. Each of these little boxes that you see on the dashboard is called a gadget. I can pick this gadget up and move it around and rearrange them. I can build these dashboards to look like whatever I want. So that gives me the ability to have high-level views. I can look at what's the overall project status or what's the status of our enterprise, and I can look at very fine-level things like here's our SRV high-priority tickets. So as I'm working in the service desk, I want to know what are the most important things we need to be working on right now, and I can look at these particular issues in this filter results gadget. I can look at tickets that are assigned to me. This two-dimensional filter statistics is a incredibly amazing gadget that is relatively underused. You don't see it a lot, but it's actually incredibly powerful. Atlassian just did a write-up on how powerful it is and how useful it is. So here we have it set up by assignee and by status. So here I can look at all the different people that are assigned tickets that are in the results set of this particular filter and what status each of those tickets is in. So I can see what's everybody's workload. Right off the bat, you can see that Christopher Pepe has 27 new tickets, 18 resolved, so we don't care as much about that, but that's a lot of stuff on his plate. And other people don't have nearly as much stuff in WIP. So from a team perspective, this would be the kind of case where I would come in here and say, whoa, this guy's got a lot of stuff going on. Maybe I can come and take some of those tickets off his plate and work them for him. Similarly, there's pie charts, and there's a number of other different types of graphs that we can put in here. Again, we're looking at our demo service desk project, and we're looking at by assignee. We can see the vast majority of the tickets are assigned to Christopher Pepe. Joseph's got quite a few. Christian has a few. So looking at this, I can say, okay, I probably have an overloading problem as a manager, and I want to go and shuffle who tickets are assigned to. We're going to switch over to questions now. So the last thing I'm going to do is pull up this gadget browser, and if Christian wants to start asking questions, I can answer those for you. These are all the different things that come bundled with JIRA, and plugins you install may include other ones as well.
Awesome, great, thanks, Christopher. So a couple questions from Jeannie. Jeannie, thanks for submitting these. First question being, how does JIRA decide who the assignee is?
It's a really good question. So let me switch back over to this guy. So I mentioned that we have the project and the component. When you configure a project, we set a project lead. So any ticket that gets created in that project is automatically going to be assigned to the project lead, unless it's otherwise, unless it's explicitly assigned to a particular person. We also have components, though, and in components we have the option to allow it to default to the project lead, or we can set specific leads for the components. So whatever the first component that's assigned to the ticket, that will also determine who the assignee is. So really on an issue in a project, it's going to look at the components first and find out if there's an assignee based on the components that are associated to the ticket. And if not, it's going to fall back on the project and use the project lead as the assignee. Now with email integration, there's a couple of other options as well. There's an option called CC assignees. So if you send an email to JIRA@praecipio.com and you CC Christian, it'll automatically assign the ticket to Christian. So you do have some options, and there's other mail handlers and other plugins that have other assignment engines. You have a little bit of flexibility. In your permissions, you also determine who is a valid assignable user in a project. So you don't have to have your entire enterprise be assignable. If there's only 3 people that work in the service desk and 500 people that use it, only those 3 people will show up in the assignable users box as valid options.
Very good, thank you. Next question, also from Jeannie, was, can you only link tickets within the same project?
No, that's actually really nice. You can link across projects, and you can also search across projects with JQL. In general, anything that you have permission to do, you're going to be able to do it across all of those projects. So linking tickets across projects and searching across projects are both supported out of the box.
Okay, next question is from Suzanne. Thanks for submitting the question, Suzanne. How do you get all the issues related to a project to roll up to the project? Example, I set up a project with 3 issues. I want to see the aggregated time associated with all 3 issues at a project level.
Right. So the easiest way to do the time aggregation within JIRA is to have your main issue and then a number of subtasks, and all those subtasks are the things you actually do, and all of that time will roll up to the main issue itself. Now, Greenhopper, which we didn't cover, Greenhopper has some additional functionality to take all of that time and roll it all up and give you a report at the end of a sprint or at the end of a body of work. Some other time tracking plugins which give you kind of more advanced time tracking capabilities.
Okay, great. One more question from Laura. Thanks for submitting. I would like to know how issues are marked resolved by changing the status.
That's actually a function of the workflow itself. So when we build out our workflow, um, we determine what's our terminal state going to be. You know, when does this thing actually end, and that is really workflow dependent. So in this particular workflow, we're calling resolved and closed. Those are both kind of our done states. So once we reach resolved, we set a resolution. So what we do is in the workflow itself, it's called a post function. So it's something that when you click on the transition, after the transition happens, all these post functions occur. One of the post functions that we have is that we set the I'm sorry, actually, I take that back entirely. If we were to reinstate it, one of the post functions would be clearing the resolution. But when we click on the resolve button, one of the fields that's available to us is the resolution, and that's when it actually gets set. So we configured the workflow to use this screen when you go to the resolve state. So really, it's a function of what is your workflow doing and when is it over. And then when you get to that over point, you make sure that you prompt the user with this resolve screen. And you'll notice that the resolution is a required field, so you can't close a ticket without setting a resolution.
All right, outstanding. So that pretty much gets us to a closing point. Thank you everyone for attending. Just wanted to set a quick reminder. Our next webinar, The Power of JQL and Reporting, is April 3rd, around 11 a.m. Central. We're also working on a enterprise webinar with Atlassian. The date's to be determined still, but it's really around security and permissions. Securing the application and content is what that is called. So that's about it, really. Thanks so much. As always, you can contact us. We've got an email address of contact@praecipio.com. And you can always find us on Twitter. Thanks again.